today we're going to be doing a lesson on how to stop procrastinating. Now, I know that all sorts of things in life get in the way. Trust me, there have been lots of things that have prevented me from finishing a lot of different works of mine. However, I found that these things were the most helpful in helping me to not only continue going, but helping a lot of other people to stop procrastinating. And I hope that it will help you to stop procrastinating too. That being said, first off, find that fire again. Now, this is actually from Jennifer Nielsen. She said that a lot of times when she feels that something isn't working, she'll go back to the part where it felt the most right and it felt that fire writing, and she'll start and rewrite from there. And I actually have me and my husband both do this, and it helps tremendously. That really helps to make sure that you don't get distracted and that you want to keep writing, because if you don't want to keep writing, of course you're going to procrastinate it. So the best way to avoid procrastination is to avoid wanting to procrastinate in the first place. And of course you're going to want to procrastinate if you don't want to write. So give yourself the motivation to write by finding that fire again. Next, make sure that you reward yourself for every little accomplishment that you make. If you finish writing a chapter, or if you're halfway through the novel, make sure that you reward yourself. Go out to eat, buy a soda, I don't know, have a movie night and just chill, whatever's within your budget and whatever you want to do. But the point being that you feel good, and make sure that you create that positive relationship with writing, like I mentioned in one of my previous videos about creating good writing habits. This will not only help you create a good writing habit, but it'll help you feel better about writing and be able to feel like you are a good writer. Doesn't matter if your first draft is perfect, it will never be perfect. However, you wrote it, and that's the best that you can possibly do. Because without it being on the page, you can't edit a blank page. Now, that isn't my own quote, that's from someone anonymous, but it's true. Without a blank page, you can't. Without a written page, you can't edit it. That blank page is just going to do nothing. So you got to make sure you write it, even if it means rewarding yourself for every few chapters by eating a cookie or something. It's got to make it so that you want to keep going, want to keep writing. So make sure you have that fire, and make sure you reward yourself so you have an external motivator as well. All right. The third thing is, if you have another story idea, I have so many story ideas all the time. I'm constantly being bombarded by story ideas. So I end up having to do this, where I actually have a little notebook where I'll write down about 3 to 4 sentences about my idea, and then I shut it, and then I go back to writing, because otherwise I'm just going to get totally distracted. However, if you don't write it down, I understand that you might be frustrated later, and then you'll be like, well, why didn't I stop to write it down? Well, have a notebook sitting right next to you, so if you ever get an idea, just write it down in the notebook, and then just keep plowing through, keep going. That way you don't have certain ideas monopolizing your time and making sure that it's taking over all of that time that you could be spending writing, instead just writing down blurbs for other story ideas. That being said, if you have multiple ideas and you're stuck on one idea, for instance, and you just can't seem to get that fire back, I believe it was Ali Condi, I think it was. But she actually recommended that you leave it in a crock pot. You gotta make sure that you let it simmer and stew. Now, that being said, you don't procrastinate for too long. That's why you should have 2 projects. So that way when you're stuck on one, you can jump to the other, and then you're working on that project, and hopefully that will work itself out and simmer itself down. And when you come back to it, you'll feel better about it. So I'd say 2, maybe 3, no more than 3 projects at a time, though. Otherwise it can get too overwhelming and you end up never finishing any of them. That being said, if you're gonna do mostly switching between ideas, make sure that you keep track of how long you're switching. As long as you're getting writing done, go for it. However, if you have a main project that has a deadline, maybe make sure that you say, okay, I can't get delayed on this other side project for more than a week, or whatever the deadline is for you. That way you can stay on target and make sure that you don't get completely and utterly sidetracked by the whims and wonderful ways of this world of writing and creative literature. Now, the last thing I want to take the most amount of time to address this is life. Life gets in the way, let's be honest. Have you ever been like, I have an hour of writing time today, and then if you're in college, your professor gives you an assignment that's going to take the rest of the day. Your writing time's gone. or you have kids and you're like, hey, I have writing time today, and you're so excited while they're at school, and then one of them gets sick and has to come home from school. All that writing time is gone again. Or hey, the kids are at school, I have writing time, and then you realize, oh, I haven't done the laundry or the dishes. Writing time is gone again. Now, this is what I like to call the all or nothing behavior, and I am very guilty of it, where I'm like, hey, if I can't just sit and write for like 3 hours, then I won't do any writing. This is a bad mentality. I know it is, and I've struggled with it my entire life. The best thing that you can do to combat this, in my opinion, is actually to handwrite stuff, or at least that's what works for me. Other people keep a little phone next to them and they text to type and they talk to their phone and they tell all the ideas while they're doing their dishes or whatnot. But as long as you're doing something that is writing related during those times, you can still figure it out. Or even if you just write a little bit. For example, Terry Pratchett, that's his name. Terry Pratchett, who is the co-author of Good Omens with Neil Gaiman, he said that one thing that he did that made him so successful was that he wrote 1,000 words a day. Didn't matter if they were good words, didn't matter if they were bad words, didn't matter what project they were on. He just wrote 1,000 words a day. I agree with that mentality. If you can, and you don't have to do 1,000, you can even do 200 or 15. But as long as you're writing a little bit every day, you're going to get it done. The way that I finished my first novel, unpublished because I'm still working on it, editing it and whatnot, the way that I finished my first novel was I brought it with me everywhere. I had a physical copy notebook and a physical pen, and I would write in any downtime that I had. If I was waiting 5 minutes for the microwave to finish microwaving my burrito or whatever, I would write a paragraph. If I had 2 minutes while I was waiting for my ride to come pick me up, I would write about it. If I had a 20-minute gap because my train was late, I would write while I was waiting. I think you'll find you have a lot more time than you think you do when you just take it as small little goals, even though life can definitely get in the way. And I understand that life is not easy and that sometimes you're like, well, how am I supposed to write? My whole life's falling apart. It's okay to take a breath. It's okay to take good care of yourself. You need to make sure that you are well taken care of, otherwise your writing and your ideas will not flow properly because your brain is overtaxed. So it's okay to take a break. Don't take this as me saying it's not okay to take a break. But there's a difference between a break and procrastination. A break is when you are doing so for your mental health and that you know you'll come back to it and that you will happily come back to it. Procrastination is when you think, I have time to do this, and then immediately think, I have about 50 other things that I should be doing or can do, and so I'll do those instead. And generally it's the can do, not however the should do does tend to be procrastination. It's called productive procrastination. That's when you take things like laundry and dishes and you're like, instead of I'll do them in 10 minutes after I write this few sentences, you say I'm going to forgo writing entirely so I can do the dishes and the laundry. This is what causes people to never write their novels. This is what causes people to go with a ghostwriter if they even do write their novels. If you want to get your story out there and you want to write your novel, just practice. Even just 100 words a day. It's not that much. It's maybe a paragraph. It feels good. It feels good to get it all out on the page. It feels good to make it feel written, to feel seen, to feel done. And even if you haven't finished your novel, I'm not saying you have to finish your novel. I'm just saying even a paragraph will help you feel better about yourself and your novel and where you're at. And even if you're absolutely and completely stuck, like I said, like Jennifer Ann Nielsen said, and like I said about her, find that fire again and make sure that you can start over if you need to, and make your it rewarding experience with little rewards for yourself. Make sure that if you have other story ideas, you don't neglect them, but you write them down. You make sure you can switch if you want to, and if life's getting in the way, find a way to work around life, because there are always things that will take other priorities. Always. There will always be another stressful thing coming up. There will always be another life thing that crashes down. There will always be another problem that needs to be solved. There will always be dishes and there will always be laundry. However, you as a person will not always be. That's the sad tragedy of life. And if you are going to write that story because you're the only one who can write that story. And it is important that you write it because you're the one who can write it. Not everyone's a writer. Not everyone's born to be a writer. Not everyone is nurtured in a way to be a writer. Not everyone wants to be a writer. I mean, heck, if we were all writers, it'd be a problem, right? But that makes it so that those writers that do exist out there are so rare that they have a perspective and they have a story that they can tell in their own point of view. And you do that too. And don't say, hey, my ideas aren't good enough. Hey, I'm not creative enough. That's not true because you're you. You are your own unique person. If you were an exact clone of someone else living the exact same life, okay, maybe they could write your story the same way. But you can only write your story your way because you're you. You're unique. And that's why I think stopping procrastinating is important because there will always be things in the way for life. But you won't always have the time and the luxury that you think you do. And so it's important to make time for the things that matter. And if writing matters to you, make that time because your story does matter, whether or not you believe me. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this. If you are hearing this YouTube video right after it's been posted, then you still have time. Writers Club is from 8 to 9 p.m. tonight, August 31st, 2023. So please, if you are seeing this before 8 o'clock p.m. on August 31st, drop by the library and come see me. I would love to give feedback on your work. I would love to talk to you about your work. I would love to help you get unstuck or a brainstorm. I am available for almost anything. As a professional editor and writing coach, I am more than happy to help you through any writing slump that you're working through. And I hope that this was helpful for you and that I will be able to see more entries from you guys coming in November for the first chapter contest. Thanks. Bye.